welcome. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Dave Gustin. I'm a foundation professor in the School for the Future of Innovation in Society and Associate Vice Provost for Discovery, Engagement, and Outcomes here in the Global Futures Lab. I was not supposed to be your host here today. That was supposed to be Eric Fisher, my colleague in SFIS, and Eric is in our Zoom attendees. He had an unfortunate encounter with one of Arizona's native arthropods that did not, and so it was the ruin your week kind of arthropod as opposed to the ruin your day kind of arthropod. In other words, that was a bark scorpion. So I will be introducing our guest here today instead of Eric. Before I get to that, let me thank Cindy Dick and our team for the arrangements here. Remind those of you who are in attendance, if you registered in the appropriate way and on time and said that you were going to be here, there should be some food for you after. But even if you didn't do that, looking at the attendance, there will probably be food for you anyway. And Cindy is nodding her assent, so thank you. So it's my pleasure to introduce Armin Grunwald. Armin is the head of the Institute for Technology Assessment and Systems Analysis, or ETAS, at the Karlsruhe Institute of Technology. The 5 words in English turns into 4 or 3 words and 4 words in German, which is how you get that abbreviation. And he is also the head of the German Bundestag's Office of Technology Assessment there as well. Despite his PhD in theoretical solid-state physics, he has made significant contributions to the ethics of technology, to the hermeneutics of technology assessment, and really in his work at ETAS and the Bundestag's Office of Technology Assessment. He has been really, and the group there at ETAS has really been among the global leaders in thinking about technology assessment. He is also an associate editor of the Journal of Responsible Innovation, where I was the founding editor in 2014, 2015. Eric Fisher is the current editor-in-chief, and right now in a plug for the journal, as well as most recent publication we have coming out in this 10th anniversary of the journal, a sort of editorial review paper that looks at the 10-year history of publications in responsible innovation in the journal. And Armin has been an incredible contributor both to the journal and to that literature. I've known you and your work for probably something like 25 years, but the gray cells that hold that specific memory of what it was have probably long gone. So I don't know whether you remember that or not, but nevertheless, it's wonderful to have you here for what is probably your 3rd visit to ASU, your 2nd fairly recently, 4th, 5th visit to ASU. If you go back with Melnick, it could be, I mean, there could be many, many visits that none of us remember. But Armin will be speaking about technology and the good Anthropocene. He'll go till about 20 minutes before 1. We'll have questions and answers both in the room and on Zoom, and then retreat for lunch. Armin.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dave. Thanks for coming to all of you. Welcome. And thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak. First of all, I should say, well, I did not know that this area is so dangerous. Tomorrow I want to go to the desert by bike, so I should not leave the bike. Yeah, I learned.
Everything will sting you, bite you.
Yeah. Okay, hopefully it will come back to healthy waters. Okay.
Rattlesnakes out here.
The good Anthropocene. I learned about this notion by the Ecomodernist Manifesto almost 10 years ago. It was published by the Breakthrough Institute, and it was widely discussed at that time. And then I forgot again about that notion, but it came back in the recent years. Not really in an overwhelming extent, but here and there. And then I started again thinking about a good Anthropocene. In Germany and Europe, at least mostly in Germany, this notion, for many people, it sounds to be provocative, because people say, well, the Anthropocene is an evil in itself. We should overcome this Anthropocene, and there's no chance to make it to a good era. Well, then I respond, what shall this mean to overcome the Anthropocene? We are now 8 billion people on the planet. We will be perhaps 10 to 11 billions in some decades. Overcoming the Anthropocene perhaps would need going below 1 billion or even less. Yeah. Otherwise, we have all these consummation needs, the needs to get food and to be mobile and so on. And so there will be Anthropocene also in the future anyway. And the alternative to having a good Anthropocene is to have a bad one. And I guess that is not a good alternative. So there's a clear mission, I guess, for science, and in particular for our activity fields, to look how we can achieve a good or at least a better Anthropocene than we have now. And I guess there is consensus that now the Anthropocene is not a good era. So we have to do something in front of us. I will go through my presentation in 4 steps. The 2 first ones I will keep rather short because I guess all of you know about this. And then I will explain a little bit more about this vicious circle of the technology advance. And indeed, it is an experiment for myself because I never talked about this. I delivered some abstracts here and there using this notion, but I never had a presentation on this. And I'm very keen to learn about your reactions on this idea. Okay, I guess nothing is necessary to say about the Anthropocene. I directly start with some pictures. This is the world energy demand since the year 1800. And you see most of the theorists of the Anthropocene, they see its origin in the Industrial Revolution. But if you look to the figures, you see perhaps really, it started really after Second World War only. Then the oil era was really starting. Coal came later and with a new growth, and gas. Of course, we have in Germany we have problematic experiences made with gas. Yeah, you know, and you still see renewables. Well, small portion. 85% of the world energy demand still is fulfilled by burning fossil fuels. So that means energy transition on a global level is a huge endeavor. The Anthropocene can be seen everywhere. For example, the planet Earth will be reshaped, is going on. In one of my former visits to ASU, I made an excursion to Organ Pipe National Park close to Mexico. And while going to there, I found this copper mine, this former copper mine in Ajo. And there's a large region which has been considerably changed by humans. And there are many, many similar regions all over the world, and the development is going on. Yeah, areas of this type we also find all over the world, and megacities are emerging and growing. And people say, well, at the end of this century, 80% of these probably 10 billion people will live in cities. Okay, and this, yeah, I guess this should be a picture from America, yeah, some years ago. The light in Europe seen from the space, so there's never darkness. Also, this is an indication for the Anthropocene. And I like very much this curve. This is the development of the world population, the number of humans living on planet Earth over the last 12,000 years. And you see, for a long, long time, nothing happened, or not much happened. Yeah? Not much happened. There were some millions or so very low number of people. And then when the first higher cultures emerged, in Egypt, Mesopotamia, China, and so on, then the number increased. Yeah, here is 200 million in the year 0, 200 million. That is the Roman Empire. The world population, not the population of Roman Empire. And then also in the medieval ages, not much happened. only after the Industrial Revolution, with its success also in science and medicine, then things changed considerably. And it's amazing to see that we reached the 2 billion in 1928 only. That is less than 100 years ago. And we increased the amount of our population about a factor of 4 in 100 years only. And I guess this is the most fascinating and perhaps even threatening picture of the Anthropocene. It's just the sheer number of humans on planet Earth we now have to feed, we now have to supply with all the goods they need. And this huge number is, it's created a path dependency, because the need to feed them, to have a good life or whatever, it remains into the future. And that means for me, there will an Anthropocene also in the coming decades and probably centuries. Okay, again, I guess there's no need to talk about this. Perhaps at the end of nature, this is a term philosophers like. The end of nature, philosopher Aristotle, 2,500 years ago, distinguished between the world which emerged by itself and the world made by humans. The world emerging by itself he called nature, and the world made by humans he called culture. And now there is an end of nature, because we find the traces of human civilization, economy, technology all over the world. So the nature is no longer the nature in the sense of Aristotle, but it became a nature with our traces, shaped by humans. And that led philosophers like German philosopher Arnold Gehlen to the idea that technology and culture now are a kind of second nature. So we are not living, do not have one first nature and one second one, but we simply live in the second nature. The environment, if you look outside, it is second nature, because this environment determines our way to life, our way of life, and also the success factors for having a good life. So this is the world we are living in, and this is Anthropocene. Second step, technology in the Anthropocene. Of course, without technology, without the Industrial Revolution, without the huge progress scientists, researchers, and engineers made over the last 200 years, there would be no Anthropocene today. Even the world population would not have grown in this strong manner, but perhaps a little bit more modest. So without technology, we wouldn't have any Anthropocene. And the promise of the technology advance is, as philosophers of the European Enlightenment already told us, well, it is to make us humans more independent from the forces of nature, to allow us to shape the world according to our values and goals, instead of being dependent on the external environment. Okay, this was absolutely successful. If we, for example, now go to the supermarket, we can buy food from all over the world in every time of the year. So we are free to choose what we want to eat from which place and so on. And we have this possibility all the year. In former times, people had to eat what grew outside in the area, and it strongly depended on the season. This is making humans more independent from nature. A huge success story, but a success story with a dark side. This huge success story also caused a lot of unintended effects, risks. This is quite self-evident to you. It is almost irreversible. It bears path dependency, and the core of what I will later call the vicious circle is that technology solves a lot of problems. Okay, yes, it does. But it also often is the source of new problems which emerge later only. Years later, decades later, it depends on the technologies. So that means we have a situation of ambivalence. And only few pictures for this. I like this one because I am living with my family in Cologne in Germany. And this is our cathedral. And there was a very famous title story of the German magazine Der Spiegel in 1986 already, almost 40 years ago, showing increasing sea level. So this is physically nonsense because Cologne is located 50 meters above sea level. So we are certain and safe, yeah. But it was to demonstrate that we have a serious problem with climate change. Almost 40 years ago already. Pollution everywhere on the planet. I like also this one, high-level radioactive waste. I know that also the United States have a story with this. Germany has a very disturbing history with nuclear waste, and we still did not succeed to find a good way what to do with this type of waste. And Germany phased out nuclear power. We have been using it for 50 years, in total 50 years, but taking care of the nuclear waste will take 100 years or more into the future, or perhaps thousands years if we take a look on these radioactive materials. So short time of having used it, but a long time of need to take care of the waste. Now come to the eco-modernism, which I already mentioned at the very beginning. This manifesto, it was really challenging to Europeans because there was a storyline behind, well, let's increase the speed of the technological advance. Let's go for highest efficiency. And then we will solve the problems ahead and we will arrive at a good Anthropocene. This paper mentioned there, identified 4 central premises of this eco-modernism. First of all, no alternative to the economic growth paradigm. I guess this is not only the case in the United States, it is worldwide clear. Economic growth is regarded as a good thing. Germany just is suffering from very weak or not existing growth, and people see a problem in this. So it was taken as granted, as given, no alternative to this. We will have and we must have also economic growth also in the future. Second, what's the relation between the limitation of planet Earth, the limitation of resources on the one side, and the idea of having infinite economic growth? There seems to be a contradiction, a tension, perhaps incompatibility. But people said, well, let's increase efficiency. Increase, and so then we will be able to get more value out of the same resources. And by this idea, well, we will be able to have infinite growth in spite of the limitation to resources. Third part, further technological progress will be the major problem solver for approaching a good Anthropocene in strengthening this efficiency further and further. And the fourth, and this struck me as a practitioner and theorist of technology assessment, well, they didn't talk about unintended consequences. So they just were optimistic that the way they propose here to go for more and more efficiency will just lead to a good Anthropocene without at least severe unintended consequences. And in the paper, I elaborated on some arguments that these 4 premises should be questioned and discussed. So my critique is that eco-modernism ignores the ambivalences of the technological advance, which we have been witnessing now for 100, 150, 200 years. I listened here, some of them in my lectures to students. I can talk about 1 hour or more about this one slide. I will not do this today. I guess you know what I mean because you are experts from the field. Now, coming to this vicious circle. Okay, so what we have in the, and I guess this belongs to the Anthropocene, is a kind of attitude. Do you have a problem? I have a technology which will solve your problem. Techno-fix. This is the dominant type of thinking. As soon as there is a problem, people call for technology. So if there is a problem, and we have several problems in the Anthropocene today, well, let's develop new technologies for problem solving. And what will happen then? Okay, indeed, problems will be solved. Often this is the case. And this is the success story of the technological advance. Perhaps they will not be solved completely, but partially, which is better than nothing. So it's a good idea. But often, not always, but historically often, new problems will then emerge later only by unintended effects, which were not taken seriously or were not known at the very beginning, but then they become visible years or decades later. I think, for example, of the internet. The inventors of the internet were enthusiastic about strengthening democracy by the internet communication. Really, there was utopian thinking behind that this type of global communication would make dictatorships impossible and would bring democracy to every point of the world. Okay, now we see ambivalent developments. Okay, these things come later. So we see there are new problems. The technology solves problems, but later, sometimes or often, there are new problems. And of course, if there are problems, then we need technology. That's quite clear. They must be developed. For example, in the case of hate speech or whatever, new algorithms which could sort out these things and so on in order to make the internet communication more friendly, so to speak. Okay, also these new technologies will be developed and implemented and partially will help solving the problems. But you know already what comes now. Also, these technologies will have other unintended consequences later. So what we see, a development over time, a kind of circle between identifying problems, developing technology, implementing technology, solving the problems, later seeing there are new problems, and then again and again and again. This is what I call for the first time in the presentation, this vicious circle of the technological advance. And the question is, and I concede that I cannot answer this today, and perhaps I will never be able to answer it. This seems to be a never-ending story. Is this story compatible with a good Anthropocene, the idea of a good Anthropocene, with the idea of sustainability or whatever? This is what I will be talking about the remaining 15 minutes. And then I guess I hope we will have some discussions, because I do not really know what to do. Yeah, perhaps we have a kind of swarm intelligence here, which will help. Some examples for this to illustrate this circle. First, since few years, all people talk about direct air carbon capture and storage, because we see mitigation does not help fastly enough. So we have to add other technologies to the system in order to solve the problem of climate change. Okay, please imagine we do this on a global level. We have all these machines. We have a small one here in the neighborhood, I know. All these machines and the infrastructure working and getting the CO2 out of the atmosphere, and then the problem of climate change might be solved. But then there will be a global infrastructure which always must work. So this will burden the future generations, the necessity to always keep this technology running. This will make the future generations dependent on the smooth functioning of this global system. What in case of war, in case of geopolitical tensions? We don't know. So it may solve some problem, but it brings other problems into the world. Second example, we have a problem with fossil-driven cars and emissions. Okay, so the technological solution is easy. Go to e-mobility and get the electricity needed out of renewables. Okay, good idea. But now imagine if this is running successfully, then I don't know how many cars are on planet Earth. Let's hundreds of millions, perhaps 1 billion. Let's take 1 billion because it's an easy number. Replace 1 billion of fossil-driven cars by 1 billion electricity-driven cars. Imagine how many batteries you need and all the supply infrastructure. Well, rare metals are needed to do all this. There are not many of them on planet Earth, and they are located mostly in problematic areas like China. So we see one problem will hopefully be solved by going this way, but another problem, scarcity of rare metals, will be a serious problem in the future. Third example, it's simple and perhaps also even a bit silly. Keeping cities human-friendly in times of accelerated climate change. George, we talked yesterday about this problem. No? We could simply install technological solutions, install AC, air conditioning, cooling everywhere. Perhaps even building a roof over Phoenix, a huge roof, and keep the air here and at the ground in a human-friendly range. Okay, a technological solution, but it will need a lot of energy. And if we don't care, it will further accelerate climate change. So all these ambivalent effects, problem solutions of the present cause problems for the future. There's no logical need that this happens, but in fact, we could observe that it happens often. Okay, some attributes of this vicious circle. There is an infinite progress imaginable. The technological progress has no end in itself. Of course, there's no inbuilt stop at any point. We can do this ever and ever. Each loop needs new technology. That means our colleagues from the technical disciplines and the engineers, will have a lot to do also in the future. However, the need for new technologies will be more and more dominated by the necessity to combat unintended consequences of the past. So we have to spend more and more resources to repair the damage which already has been caused by older technologies. So that means that our freedom to think about wonderful new solutions or wonderful new technology, not only solutions to given problems, wonderful technologies to expand, to think anew, to bring completely new things to the world. This type of thinking might suffer because most of our resources will be needed to take care of, for example, climate change and other problematic unintended side effects. Each solution reached at a certain point of time helps gaining time. And this is a good effect. Yeah, if we would successfully combat climate change for, let me say, 20 or 50 years, and thereby create a problem which emerges in 20 or 50 years only, then we have a gain of some decades for perhaps thinking anew about the problem and finding new solutions. That is a good thing. However, in this process, the dependency on the smooth functioning of technology, particularly the critical infrastructures, will increase. So this spiral, which is behind this vicious circle, it increases our dependence on smooth functioning of technology. Okay, last point. Now, last few minutes towards a good Anthropocene. Okay, there is a roadmap called sustainable development, this was a wonderful description of what sustainable development means. Unfortunately, it's not very operable. It's more a philosophical discussion. And the question is, if we take this description of sustainable, long-term sustainable development seriously, which has some idea of steady state or equilibrium behind it, is this idea compatible with the vicious circle mentioned? So an infinite spiral, yeah, always increasing the amplitude of interventions on the one side, and the idea to have a long-term sustainability as as a kind of good Anthropocene, where perhaps all these sustainable development goals will be fulfilled simultaneously. Some hypothetical options, and not all of them are meant seriously. The first is, well, there is no, you cannot make so the first attitude is, well, the never-ending spirals, following the dynamics of the vicious circle cannot be made compatible with long-term sustainability. There is a deep inconsistency between them. Therefore, some people say, only few, they say, well, then our only chance is to stop the technological advance, simply to cut off the development and say, here in this spiral, we stop at this point and perhaps go back. Go back, reduce technology, go more down to basic living and so on, and escape from the vicious circle. Okay, I guess this is a bad idea, because first we then ignore that further technological progress will really have good potentials to contribute to a good Anthropocene. And second, we also would ignore the huge path dependency of the current civilization. For example, only the necessity to get food for 8 or 10 billion people will need huge amount of technology. It's not possible to go back to traditional farming and then to feed 10 billion people. So this way is a very bad solution. Next one, we have to change the mode of operation we have so far. That means simply find a way to escape the vicious circle, not by just stopping it, but by breaking its dynamics. So by breaking the dynamics, that problem solution often also creates new problems for the future. So just let's invent technologies which solve the problems, but which do not cause problems to the future. Very simple idea, basic idea of technology assessment, but it does not work. As far as we can see today, how should we do this? How could we change the mode of operation? Even technology assessment at its best, or responsible research innovation at its best, they cannot guarantee that unintended and possibly devastating side effects could emerge years, decades later. We do our very best, but we cannot guarantee. And the third one I will present to you. I hear this sometimes when futurist thinkers talk about long-term developments. It is this one. Well, there's no chance to arrive at a long-term sustainability on planet Earth. Because we have limitations of resources and we have ever-increasing needs of people. Therefore, humankind should leave the planet and colonialize space. This is a story which is told again and again, has been told again and again in decades. In my mind, this is also not a good idea, because first, there's not enough time. The first humans were on the moon more than 50 years ago, but since that time, nobody was on the moon. And why? Because it's not very nice there for humans. This is the one reason. And the other is, even if spaceflight, colonializing space, would have incredible success in the coming decades. Well, how should we bring 8 or 10 billion people to space? All the stories of settling on Mars or so, Elon Musk, yeah, you know, they talk about thousands or perhaps 1 million people, but not about 8 or 10 billion people. Okay, what remains? There is no, as far as I can say, no general solution in sight, no disruptive, yeah, problem solving to the better, no overall solution. Instead, history goes on. Yeah, we have to do our jobs, we have to do our research and to do outreach and to cooperate with utilities and with stakeholders and so on in order to develop the world to the better here and there in our small areas. We have some opportunities to intervene. I think, however, that in doing this, which is necessary, we should have these grand issues of the vicious circle in mind, because this will help us not to expect too high, not to have too high expectations with regard to what we can do in our, let me say, in our daily work. We have to do, yeah, we have to explore and reflect global futures. And I guess saying this in this building here has some special meaning. I'm honest, yeah, some Europeans and perhaps even including me think, well, Americans are great in inventing new terms, grand terms, yeah, and global futures, yeah, wonderful. But what is behind, yeah? Is it more rhetoric or is it content? After these more 2.5 days now I've spent here at ASU and have been talking to many colleagues here, I see that there's a lot of content behind. It's much more than rhetoric. And therefore I wrote it down here. So it's very good to go this way, and it is necessary because this level only addresses the challenges of the Anthropocene. So we have to embed our research at the, let me say, which I guess we all have, down to earth, yeah, in these areas we have with colleagues, with stakeholders and so on. But we have to embed all these stuff we do into these bigger pictures of the global futures. And by doing this, we need even more integrative considerations, yeah? Ecological, economic, social, ethical, cultural, and so on and so on. Post-colonial approaches, even more. In some debates in Germany now, we see again colonial structures. For example, viewing to Africa. Africa is regarded on the one side as a continent of poor people which are suffering from hunger and poverty. And on the other side, and this is dominant at the moment, Africa is seen as a land, as a continent full of resources. And now we try to replace Russian gas by green hydrogen from African countries. So, and we are in risk to restore colonial thinking at a different level, of course, than 100 years ago. But we have to really be aware that we not run into old schemes. And for doing all this, this is the good message. Now we have many approaches available. We developed such a lot of approaches to go this way, not to already to find the full realization of what is necessary to be done. But we have a lot of scientific approaches, methods. We have also experiences with many of these methods. So there is a lot available. And I guess we still are in charge of, bringing more of this to reality, to bring more of this to practical policy, to municipalities, to governments, to authorities, and so on, where this old thinking of, let me say, we have a problem, I have a technology, is still dominant. So this is, in a sense, a completely boring message at the end of my talk, because this is it is helpless. There's no new message. It is simply the message, well, we are on a good track, but we have to accelerate. Yeah, we have to do more and more on this in order to to contribute to a better Anthropocene. We will not end the vicious circle by doing this. But I hope, my hope is that we will be able to, to bring the amplitude of this spiral to a better equilibrium, so that the amount of the extent of damage, for example, of unintended consequences will be smaller in the future, and so that we easier will be able to deal with it. So that also in this way, problem solutions of today will cause problems for tomorrow. But my hope is that if we're going this way, the problems we create for the world of tomorrow will be smaller than the problems previous generations created with the world, with their technologies now, and which we have now to deal with in our times. Okay, this is my hope, and I guess this, that's it. Thank you for your attention, and I concede it was not very optimistic, perhaps, what I've been talking about. It is the experience of almost 30 years of being in the field. Thank you.